Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the program. This is News and Views with me, Julie Ali. It is exactly 8:40 a.m. Our next guest is Shahnaaz Paruk from Penny Appeal, South Africa. And no, we're not going to be talking about their latest projects. This time around, we're going to talk to our dear sister about the humiliation that she and her mother experienced at OR Tambo. And yes, that story continues about profiling of hijab wearing women at OR Tambo. Shahnaaz Paruk, Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the program. And I'm so sorry to hear that you and your dear mom were subjected to this humiliation. When did this happen? And please talk to us how this story unfolded.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah, Auntie Julie. Always a pleasure to be speaking with you. Definitely a bit disappointed, under the circumstances. Just to let you know the context around what had transpired, I was actually returning from a work trip. So it was a colleague of mine who had accompanied to the airport. Yes. And so, the usual Monday morning, and we made our way through, into the airport, check in, and then obviously you go through the security checkpoint at domestic departures. And we subsequently, checked our items in, and I proceeded to go through the scanning machine, the metal scanner, which I refer to as the beeping machine. And I passed through perfectly fine. And the next thing I know, there's somebody who says to me, "I need to search you." And for a moment, I couldn't understand if they were speaking to me or, what was going on. And so I said, sorry. And they said, I need to search you. And I said, well, why do you need to search me? I didn't beep. Those were my words. And they said, no, it doesn't matter. I need to search you. So I said, why? And they said, because you're wearing a duk. You're wearing a duk. And for a moment, I didn't know whether to laugh or, was I really hearing this? And so I just said, but I didn't beep. And I said it twice, and that whole comment was just ignored. And so I said to her, look, I'm not happy with this. Like, why do you need to search me? And that's when her male colleague stepped in, and he basically had explained to me in not so friendly terms, not even explained. He just basically said that if you wear a duk, we will search you. If you don't want to be searched, you remove your duk. And I said, but that's not right. Why? I'm very much a person who needs to know why. And I said, but why? And so his next statement actually really took me for a six, for lack of a better term, where he basically said that it's the religion. Your religion, if you wear the duk, we must search you. If you don't want to be searched, you remove your duk. And the moment that word religion was thrown into it, it actually shocked me beyond belief, because to my best knowledge, I am a South African. I am proudly South African. I say this to everybody. I love our country despite all the challenges we have. And to be subjected to that and told that, this is what would transpire simply because of your religion, to be told that you either remove your headscarf or the duk, as he referred to it as, remove it, or you're going to be searched. It shouldn't ever have to be choose which form of this you want. That should never have been the case ever, especially since I was struggling to understand how exactly did they choose to pull me aside and say the things that they were saying, or wanting to do what they want to do. What was the selection criteria? And it happened really quickly, over a few moments. And I came to the realization that it was simply that because I was wearing a headscarf and because I had walked through, that was the only criteria that was applied. There was nothing else that could have possibly, made them think or feel, in my view, that this is what happened. So definitely extremely disappointing. It resulted in some raised voices. My colleague had then circled back to inquire, what is the delay? Why is it taking so long for me to come through? And when he inquired, he was basically told that it's because of the headscarf and I need to remove it or I need to be searched. And the same comment, but it's our religion. And that's when things got a little bit, heated, and I just chose to, leave it as is and walk away, because nobody likes a scene at an airport, right? Nobody wants to be singled out. It just left a very ugly feeling, inside, like I had done something wrong. And it took me a long time after that, while I was sitting, just gathering what had happened, to actually speak about it, because, I just feel that I'm a vocal person. I express myself in terms of things that I strongly believe in terms of things that I'm passionate about. And I just felt that it was not fair, and it was sad and disappointing, coming from South Africa, from my home. This is my home. I was born here. My parents were born here. I was just really shocked that this was the narrative that was pushed, or the narrative that was said to me. And then it made me think, where did this come from? At which point did these individuals, who are purely employees of larger entities, right? At which point did they receive this narrative, and on what terms and what basis? And it just really disappointed me, and for a moment it did anger me. But more than that, I just realized that we need to understand what is going on. What is the narrative, and why is there so much of this that's been going on? After I had posted on my personal profile about what had transpired, there were so many women who had commented and saying that they had experienced similar things, that it had been going on for a longer while. It was restricted to one particular airport within our entire country. And what upset me the most was the lack of response, from individuals. I had asked to speak to a senior person while I was standing there, and that was just totally ignored, as if I had never requested for it.
Let me come in here, Shahnaaz. I can't even begin to understand or express how much of humiliation you must have felt, and how totally violated you felt during this incident. We here at Salam Media spoke to Inayat Wadi, spoke to Nadia Adam, I think it was. I think she was departing or coming in from Cape Town, one of the two. But her incident also took place at OR Tambo. She was the first person, I think, that raised this matter. Last week, I spoke to a brother whose wife and daughter underwent a similar experience. His issue went a step further, where the security guard, because his daughter was wearing hijab as well, and I presume she must have been a minor. She must have been around 6 or maybe a little younger. And the security guard said to her, "It's all right, you can go through, you're too young. Listen, wait for this. You can go through, you're too young to be massaged." And I was horrified. And now here we are a week later talking with you about the same situation. We are going to pause for a minute to get right of reply from OR Tambo's Regional General Manager, Jabulani Kambule. But before I go to him, I'm kind of thinking, these security personnel at airports, you need to kind of understand their degree of perhaps awareness and education. They are minions. I kind of sometimes wonder if they're just not taken off the streets, put into a uniform and put there. And then also the communication that is disseminated at their level. So I think that all needs to be taken into account, but that doesn't justify the humiliation and the violation that we as Muslim women have to undergo at their hands.
Yeah. Here's my quick thought on this before. I totally get that these are just employees who are doing a job, and they probably went home to their families, and God bless them for doing basically what they know the best way they probably know how. My larger challenge or issue is, and this is why I had written that the likes of AXA and OR Tambo know better. If there is a fully functional international airport that is functioning in charge of numerous, types of scenarios, including security, including issues of national security, because now it's an international airport, you should know better. understanding the dynamics of your diverse country and understanding how to be politically correct, understanding that there's a need to be sensitive to all groups and divisions, right? Discrimination of any sort against any group, any religion, any race, anything is never acceptable, especially not in our country. It's never acceptable. And so this becomes a matter of how exactly are these decisions or conversations happening in terms of briefing protocols. And it's concerning, like I said earlier, there's bigger conversations further up in terms of how is this communication happening? How are staff trained in this? What is the level of awareness? Or is it that they feel that, like most things, we keep quiet? A lot of South Africans are that way in general, as well as Muslims. We tend to accept whatever comes our way. We won't question it. Is this how we find ourselves in so many situations as a nation? I'm stepping out of the Muslim only, but as a nation, is this how we find ourselves in situations where we just accept the way things are and the lack of protocol and the lack of how things should be because we don't want to ask the bigger questions and have those difficult conversations?
And before we go to that clip, all I'm saying, Shahnaaz, is we need to hold top management totally accountable for this disastrous exercise that they're undertaking at OR Tambo, simply because I don't believe they've applied their minds, and I don't think they've trained their staff adequately enough to deal with this matter as sensitively as possible. But let's go to that right of reply by Jabulani Kambule, and we'll continue our conversation, inshallah. Kolani, we're waiting for that right of reply, please, if you can play it out. Okay, we seem to be having a delay here. We are going to be listening to the voice of no.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what's the point? I'm supposed to be. It is exactly 8:54 a.m. Shahnaaz, are you there? I'm so sorry, I'm having a technical problem on my side.
No
I
worries.
unfortunately didn't hear a word Jabulani Kambule had said there, but you will respond. And just before I allow you to respond, I do want to also kind of thinking aloud here, Shahnaaz, and that is we are all aware that about 2 or 3 weeks ago, the US Embassy here in South Africa issued a terrorist warning. It was supposedly targeted at the Great Sandton City area. And I'm kind of wondering, does this not come on the back of that US terrorist warning? So, would you like to respond?
Firstly, I also did not hear his response. I think there were technical issues around there. So I definitely did not hear anything that he had said. Um, but I will just comment on what you said now, because it's not the first time someone's pointed that out in terms of the terrorist notifications that were had, or the warnings, and the fact that it could be something coming or stemming from there. The challenge here is that this has been happening for a long while, very subtly, something that we never really looked at. It hasn't happened in the last 2 months, 3 months. This is something, if you speak to and assess people and what they, and specifically females, and what they have been saying, this is something that's been happening for as far back as going back a year or so, maybe a little bit longer. The problem, not problem, it's good that it's now become louder. It's something that's louder because now people are more aware. So the likes of Nadia Adams, that had spoken out against what had transpired, this is the type of thing that happens when there are issues that need to be addressed when they go on for so long. People, you will now see that a lot of individuals would start saying that they had noted that this happened to them. And the problem is, again, because we're so accepting, usually as a nation, I won't always bring it back to our religion, but yes, as in our religion, but also as a nation, we're so accepting of the things that transpire, and we're so trusting, we don't question it. This has been going on for a while. Even if this was the case, right? Let's just say the scenario was that this was linked to the US and those terror attack warnings and stuff like that. The manner in which this is communicated is not acceptable. We live in a democratic country. Had there been a notice that said that, please note, you would be required to, at random searches, etc., perfect. I know what's going to happen. Had there been somebody who stepped up to me and said, ma'am, in the interest of national security, or ma'am, I'm sorry, this is what's happened. We're going to have to take you aside and search you. I don't think that's asking for too much. And again, I'll bring it back to the management. There should be better training and awareness for those staff members. You cannot have individuals handling people or handling females as they see fit. What really frustrates me is the level of non-response, even when you're asking questions at that security gate. There are no responses. Probably chances are because they haven't been briefed on how to handle them. Further to that, there have been numerous incidents raised with AXA and OR Tambo, and I should presume that they are through the correct channels, but there are no responses that are heard. So communication is key if you're going to be subjecting people to situations which make them uncomfortable and which literally pry into their personal space. Stating to somebody that you're going to be searching their personal space and their body is something that cannot be commanded on. It is something that needs to be communicated in a way, for anybody, in a way that they understand. And so I just like for that to be the focus of attention, rather than, well, this could be why, that could be why. No, let's not justify why it happened. Let's rather have proper conversations with the right channels and parties in a very amicable and diplomatic way to find out why this has been transpiring and what is the way forward. If we now understand, or if we are told formally this is the new status quo, we will go on to understand it. That's no problem. But there cannot be a lack of response, because a lack of response or no response is actually a response.
Okay, so to wrap up then, Shahnaaz, going forward, for you to overcome this horrendous ordeal, what would you like to see happening? I know we spoke communication, we've spoken accountability, we've
Mhm.
spoken training, very especially training the ground level staff to be more diplomatic and to be more respectful. What more are you hoping should happen so that we as Muslim women are not violated in this manner any longer? And, for us not to think, is this, are these now Islamophobic tendencies playing
Mm.
out and targeted at us because we are wearing the headscarf?
I think first and foremost, what I'd like to see happen is for us to just take a step back as Muslims. Take a step back, but don't take a step back. But when I say take a step back, I mean understand what has transpired. Right? We'll bring it back to the likes of Nadia, who created such awareness around this issue. We'll bring it back to the brother who spoke out, like you mentioned last week, to all the other people who have raised their voices. Understand that when you raise voices collectively, you are lobbying and you are advocating for change. You are advocating and you're using your voice across various mediums and platforms to be able to address the matter. Let's also understand with that action comes a responsibility, right? We are Muslim. Our religion teaches us tolerance, it teaches us peace, it teaches us to stand up for truth, but it doesn't teach us to do this in a manner that is disrespectful, in a manner that is abrasive. We can be upset and angry about it. We're entitled to. We are human after all. But I'm also appealing. I've read some posts on certain platforms and the mannerism and the wording that has been used. I feel that although people may be warranted to be upset and angry, let's not, fight this. Let's rather understand that we need to sit down and talk and understand the dynamics behind it. So it's really important in terms of the messaging that we are projecting going forward. What is it that we want? What is it that I want? I personally want to be able to just have a response as to why was I asked to step aside and remove and asked to make a choice between removing my headscarf or having a full body search. Why was that the case? On what basis? What was the selection criteria? Once I, for myself, understand that, I'm hoping that we would then be able to, depending on what the answers are, be able to advocate for changes in how these type of things are handled in the messaging we put forward as Muslims of South Africa, but also in terms of being able to understand that as citizens, as much as we would want to be a part of this nation, and we are a part of this nation, we need to be able to be included, have issues of inclusivity, be able to make these entities understand that discrimination is never an option, regardless of whether it's against Muslims, whether it's against other races or religions. It's never an option. It should never be. And so all we want right now is answers, and we want for the matter to be recognized, and we want formal answers so that we're able to then formulate and understand better what is actually going on, and then we can decide how we would like to address this moving ahead. We'd also like to see, in an ideal world, better handling at security points, but that's a conversation for another time, obviously relating to
Oh,
them.
okay. And we've run way out of time. My next guest is going to be quite cross with me, but be that as it may, I've been told that we have to replay that clip. I won't be able to hear your thoughts thereafter, but perhaps you just want to think about it and maybe you want to tweet about it as well, inshallah. So I'm a bit frustrated sitting in the studio right now because of these technical issues. And I ask Ma from you as well.
No
Uh,
worries.
let me wrap up with you. Let's listen to that recording, that right of reply from AXA, Jabulani Kambule, who is the OR Tambo Regional General Manager, and then we'll take our next interview. Shahnaaz, once again, I'm sorry for your experience, your very humiliating experience. And inshallah, the next time we talk, we're going to talk about Penny Appeal's next amazing, exciting project. Go
Inshallah.
well.
Looking
You
forward
go
to it.
well.
Always a pleasure speaking with you. Take care of yourself, inshallah.
Right. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
these body searches? And firstly, the question would be: is the rationale behind the headgear check? Because I know, in terms of your standard operating procedures, security would be allowed to pet the headgear without removing it, or the alternative is to allow a private search in an enclosed room. Now, this obviously didn't happen in the case of Nadia Adam, and she felt very, very strongly that she was being touched from head to toe, right in the open, in full view of everyone. And when she questioned the fact that the metal detectors did not go off, it was not beep, the response that she got is, you know why. Now, clearly, that Jabulani, if we look at the personnel that have been involved to give an answer like, you know why, I mean, how many passengers would know why?
That To respond to that, I myself, as the regional general manager of OR Tambo and an employee of Airport Company South Africa, will condemn that kind of a response from our personnel. At AXA, we have a training program called the Pride Training Program, which represents our pride values as an organization. And one of the most important of these pride values is treating people with respect. So our personnel go through this training in order to give passengers a very delightful experience and respectful when they communicate to our passengers. I will definitely take the matter up because I have seen the article, and our employees were interviewed in this regard in terms of what actually transpired on the day. And the response that we got was definitely the standards to which we have trained them on how to communicate, respond, and treat passengers with the utmost of respect. So I will investigate that. I will sit with the specific employee. We do have footage, and then just follow up as to did that really happen, because this is a media article that was written by someone else, so I cannot necessarily confirm the statement